then you said that I had never once in our whole 9 years of marriage said I'm sorry. And that
You hadn't.
you
What do you think has been one of the most challenging things about marriage?
communication. Easy.
Okay. Okay. Go on. What about communication?
Communication in arguments. Yeah. We just don't do well. That's all I don't know how deep you want me to go into it.
How do you think we argue?
Silently.
Well, I've told you before, I have arguments with you in my head.
Yeah.
And like even lose those arguments sometimes, which maybe I'm the only honest person who that happens to. I don't know. But that's when I'm kind of like, all right, yeah, I'm just going to stay quiet on the, or whatever. Um, so if I bring something up, it's usually like, yeah, I feel, you know, pretty upset about something,
Right.
right? So communication, you said that really fast.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, maybe there's,
Well, just because if we get into like a legit argument, it it can last for days, and
but it's like not, it's just not talking.
right, it's just not talking. Right. But I feel like that's like that's the only time that I ever have my issues with you.
Hmm. Do you think we're unique in that, or do you think other
No,
people?
I'm sure we're not.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not really sure what. I think I know that I can be really, really mean with my words, especially if I'm really mad. So like I tried. It's like one of those, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And then just like after a while, it just gets awkward to like bring it up. So then I think maybe we both try to see like, is this blown over yet, or are we still mad at each other? And it just gets weird.
Yeah, there's sort of a temptation to think it's just going to go away. I think
Right.
that's that. I when I'm optimistic in
Right.
those short seasons, because there are like short seasons. Like we don't
Yeah.
argue that much,
No.
but when we do, it's like, yeah, we don't talk for like 3 days.
Right.
Um, and you've said before, like obviously, like that's not healthy. Like we probably don't handle that
No, we don't. We
the
don't
right
handle it the right way.
ways.
That's very obvious.
In comparison, I mean, I think we handle a lot of it better than a lot of people. I was talking to somebody recently who was talking about just the way that their marriage works, and it was kind of like they're just like great business partners,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you feel that? Do you ever feel like, man, like we're great business partners, but we really have like some things to work on past that?
Yes, and I think that can not significantly, but I think that the older that the girls get and the more stuff that they're like involved with, and I think it's easy to just become like their chauffeurs, and then at the end of the day we're done and don't feel like communicating or spending time together because we just want to go to bed. I think it's easy to just like lose sight of each other in times of busyness.
Well, I think like metaphorically, yes, but also like physically, yes.
Sure.
Because I always tell people, I think one of the hardest things about kids is like that there's two things with, the Bible says that when you get married, you're literally taking your focus, you're dividing it in half, like from God, like this vertical relationship to like this horizontal relationship, right? And that's with any relationships, but specifically with marriage, right? It's just much deeper. You're around people much more.
Right.
You're living life with somebody. Then then the second one is like your kids. When you have kids, you're literally always looking at them
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of passing each other.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like that's challenging
Yeah.
because it's like you can't even, I mean, we'll be frustrated because we're sitting at the table at dinner and can't even have a, like a paragraph's worth of
Cannot have a
of
conversation. Right.
without kids being like, mommy, daddy, and that's, I don't know how to change that part.
Right.
So, sometimes it's like, well, how do you change the rest of it then?
It means you have to stay up till midnight recording a podcast to talk to each other.
Is it midnight?
It's 11:58.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, it is.
So I guess it would be
anything extracurricular has to happen after kids go to bed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to hear like how people fight in their marriage relationships and what works well to end those, or what, but also just kind of what issues they have in ending arguments.
What do you mean ending arguments?
Well, just resolving. I mean, resolving.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, yeah. Well, if you are still watching
Sound
at
off
this
in the
point,
comments.
yeah, I would actually really love to know what is it you argue about the most, and don't comment if this is if your significant other is going to see that comment, don't do it. But if it's going to start something, what do you argue about the most, and then what are the ways you typically resolve that? Yeah, because the resolution's hard.
Yeah. What do we argue about the most?
We argue the thing that bothers me the most, which eventually I think bleeds out and leads into arguments, is the way that you say things. Because you said you can be mean with your words. I think you're meaner with the way that you say your words. I don't even think it's the words that you say. So, it feels like a disrespect thing, not like a.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I take anything personally. I feel more disrespected than attacked.
Because like we don't like argue about specific things. I don't feel like we don't argue about finances a lot, discipline a lot, child care a lot. Like there isn't like a certain,
which makes life great,
like, topic that we
honest.
argue about. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we aren't nice to each other,
Yeah.
well, it's like just offending each other.
Yeah.
There's different ways to offend each other, I
Yes.
guess.
Yeah. So
Words, actions, whatever.
how do I offend you the most?
I think you offend me the most after I have offended you, and then you say something. I don't know how to put this. I think that if I offend you, I feel like sometimes you feel the need to like get back at me and say something as equally offensive or mean.
Maybe. I'm just thinking about the last time we argued.
Me too.
And it wasn't even. No, it wasn't like that at all. Actually, it wasn't a let me say something to hurt you, but what you said was probably the worst thing I could have said, which to me didn't make any sense. But obviously, that's just the difference in people.
What was it?
You want me to say it?
Yeah.
I told you needed to figure out a different way to. You needed to figure out a different way to be upset rather than taking it out on me. Something like that. Because I felt like you had taken something out on me that like I didn't do anything,
Right.
But
it's all coming back to me.
Yeah. But I'm not going to know that if, you thought you were sparing me, but like the communication piece was really hard because like the way you thought you were sparing me, like you hurting my feelings by not talking to me
Right.
about something.
Yes.
But in that moment, I thought you were mad at me about something,
Mm-hmm.
and you weren't. You were mad at the kids. Like you were mad at the situation. It
Situation.
wasn't me. It
Yes.
was like, and
But
I
then,
literally was like, what the heck did I do?
right.
I didn't do anything, you know. And suddenly you're just mad at me, and I can't figure it out. And not talking about it, not
Yes.
telling me, not literally not saying anything,
Yeah.
so that you didn't blow up and like
Right.
get overly emotional
Yeah.
or something. Like you thought you were doing a good thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
and for me that was like, oh, that was the worst thing you could have done, you know.
Yeah. And
So
then you said,
oh no, I don't even know what it is.
then you said that I had never once in our whole 9 years of marriage said I'm sorry. And that
You hadn't.
that's, well, first of all, that's not true. But also, you just implied that you've basically been holding that against me for our whole marriage.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's 100% true. Doesn't make it right, you know, obviously,
Right.
but yeah, that's true.
And so, like, I think, and then just got mad about, like, why has it taken you 8 years to bring that up?
What's that? I mean, we've talked about this before, but that kind of that whole thing of like, especially in a Christian relationship, like when you're supposed to be so grace driven and forgiving and like, hey
Yeah.
man, if Jesus can forgive me, shoot, I can forgive her. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like that's the crux of anything. And I tell every couple that who I do any wedding ceremony for, like any premarital counseling, is like, if you remember literally one thing that we talk about this whole, in all of the Bible stuff that we read and hear and whatever, and talk like all these different topics, you know, from everything from like money, sex, like roles in the household, like, you know, anything you could think of, parenting, any of it. The one thing, if Jesus has forgiven you, you are called to forgive somebody else. Like that grace can, I think, you know, cover a multitude of our sins,
Right.
you know. And so I think, yeah, I don't know. I think I've always leaned toward the side of trying to show grace, but that also can be ignoring.
But you
a
you obviously
problem.
hadn't forgiven.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right.
But I think, you know, trying to figure out what to make a mountain out of
Sure.
versus a molehill, it's like, okay, this just isn't worth like an argument, but like enough of that over a long period of time, obviously you're going to blow up about something.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't know. We don't argue about things well in that regard, but I think they always lead to like profitable
Sure.
conversations eventually.
Do you remember how this all started?
Tell me.
Because I was very hungry. I had spent the entire day feeding children nonstop and hadn't eaten a single thing for myself.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't get upset very often, and you were pretty upset.
I was so hungry.
Yeah. I have learned you're not you when you're hungry. Is that Snickers? Yeah. I don't understand that either. Maybe I don't notice it about myself, but maybe I'm different when I'm hungry too. I don't know. But yeah, that's a serious moment for you when you realize you haven't had anything to eat.
Mm-hmm.
What other things do we fight about? Not a whole lot more.
Really?
Not a whole
No.
lot more. But even that friend the other day that was talking about like being good business partners. It's like, I think they were also mentioning, you know, it kind of sucks because you wish things did pop off worse more often, because you can be in a marriage or any relationship and think that everything's fine and great just because there's no like serious problems.
Right.
But like that over time can also lead to, I guess, like a lack of intimacy, you know, not like physically, but like emotionally,
Right.
maybe physically too,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? So there's sort of I don't ever want kids to get in the way of like, you know, we will be married, Lord willing, without kids in the
Right.
house longer than with kids in the
Yeah.
house, you know? And so I think I talked about that with Brad and Ronnie Robertson when they were on here. Like, you know, enjoy the time without kids, but also you're going to have a lot more time without kids
Right.
too, which is scary.
Yeah.
You know, because you realize how much effort you put into your kids and how much you probably don't put into your marriage as much. And, you know, like we need to go on date nights more, probably need to pray together more, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I don't know.
I'm not doing a devotional with you, though.
Yeah. On that note, if you have any good couples devotionals,
We've never fought more.
our
Then-
first, yeah, our first week of marriage, we decided, you know what, we're going to be like great Christian couple, and I'm going to lead my wife, and we're going to do like this Bible study thing together. And we did a book that our pastor at the time gave us, and yeah, it caused some fights.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a terrible book. To be honest, it was like
I don't remember what it was.
the
but
types of questions that it asked were like, you know, what has your spouse done today that you? It was like fishing. It was like
Right.
forcing you to say
Something
about,
bad.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
bad, something negative. And I was like, nothing. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, didn't even see you today. Like I don't. But yeah. So if you have good couples devotional books, I'm not opposed to something like that.
But I am skeptical.
Just don't pick stupid ones. Yeah. Yeah. But that's one thing in marriage too that I thought there's a little different than what I thought it might be like, you know, because you kind of have this picture of like, oh yeah, you'll do like Bible studies together and you'll pray together all the time and this and that, and like, I don't know, maybe we just suck at that and other people are probably really good at that, but most of our growing, I think, has been done separately.
Yeah.
Not that we haven't had a lot of conversations about what we learn and ways that we grow and stuff, but like we've never been typically to the same conferences. You know, they've always been different, or the same retreats, or doing the same Bible study, you know, even separately, that kind of stuff. And it was a wake-up call for me when we got married that, like, you didn't want me to be your pastor, you know, because you kind of pride yourself in something, and it's kind of like you know, you went to school to be a dentist, and, like, you expect me to be your patient, but, like, you don't expect me to be your pastor.
Right.
You know, in fact, like, quite the opposite. It's like you don't want me to pastor you. And no pastor's wife does, I don't think.
I don't know. I think that especially at the beginning of marriage, I was like more embarrassed by like my lack of knowledge versus your wealth of knowledge of Bible
A
stuff.
few things. Yeah.
That like I didn't want to look stupid.
Well, I think I didn't either. I think that's, even with whatever knowledge I thought I had, or you thought I had, yeah, I think that's why we don't talk to a lot of people about our faith, period, is because you don't think you know enough to, like, lead somebody, you know?